You've probably seen it 100 times, a small rectangular can sitting quietly on a kitchen shelf. You peel back the key and it opens with a soft metallic click. Inside, pinkish meat, dense and shiny, smelling faintly of salt and memory. It's called corned beef. Wait a second, where's the corn? It's a fair question. There's clearly beef in there, but not a single kernel of corn in sight. The name corned beef has confused people for generations, especially since it sounds like it should be some kind of beef and corn stew. Because for something so simple, this dish carries a surprisingly complicated past. A story of salt, of ships, of survival, and of how a single word changed its meaning, while the flavor stayed the same. Today, we'll uncover how this humble food got such a misleading name, and how it quietly shaped trade routes, traditions, and even the way we taste history, right here on Secrets of Simple Things. Hey friends, I'm Frank. Nice to see you again. Please subscribe to support me. Very thanks. You see it in stores all the time, that small metal can with the little key on the side. Inside is something pink and salty and heavy with history. But no matter how many times you look, you'll never find a single piece of corn in there. This dish has absolutely nothing to do with the yellow vegetable we know today. The term corned comes from something much older and a bit saltier, literally. Back in Old England, the word corn didn't mean maize. It meant any small, hard grain, including big crystals of salt. People used to call those rough pieces corns of salt. And that's really all corned beef means. Beef preserved with chunks of salt, packed tight so it would last. Before freezers, that was the only way to keep meat through the winter, or to carry it across an ocean without it spoiling. Fresh beef was rubbed with salt until every surface was covered. The salt drew out the moisture, sealed in the flavor, and what came out the other side was firm, dark, and safe to eat for months. It wasn't made for taste, it was made to last, a small victory against time and hunger. It didn't start in a factory, it began in a world without refrigerators. Back then, keeping food meant fighting time. Meat spoiled fast, and a single bad cut could mean hunger for weeks. So people turned to the one thing that could outlast the seasons: salt. Salt was more than a seasoning. It was survival, and it was expensive. They called it white gold. Wars were fought for it, roads were built to carry it, and slowly it changed the way the world ate. When people learned that rubbing coarse salt on fresh beef kept it safe to eat for months, a new trade was born. By the 1600s, Ireland became its heart. The island's green pastures raised strong cattle, and its coastal city of Cork had access to cheap, high-quality salt from Spain and Portugal. Soon, barrels of Irish corned beef were sailing across the Atlantic, feeding sailors, merchants, and soldiers from Europe to the New World. But there was a cruel irony in it all. While Irish ports grew rich, the Irish people themselves were too poor to taste what they made. The best beef was shipped away, while most families at home ate pork and potatoes. So when we call corned beef Irish today, it's not just a national dish, it's a reminder. A reminder that history often flips the table. The poor made it, and the rich ate it. So what makes salt so powerful? It seems so simple, just tiny white grains, yet it's one of the few things on Earth that can hold time still. When salt touches fresh meat, it pulls out the water that bacteria need to survive. No water, no decay. The meat stays safe, and the world slows down a little. Salt doesn't fight rot, it outsmarts it. It doesn't destroy time, it softens it. Every grain is like a memory, locking away a taste, a moment, a season that might have been lost. It's the same patience that makes wine deepen or cheese grow richer with age. Proof that sometimes the best flavors are born from waiting. In a way, corned beef isn't just salted meat, it's time, preserved, packed tight, and still speaking to us centuries later. Ask anyone on St. Patrick's Day and they'll tell you corned beef and cabbage is as Irish as it gets. But here's the truth, it isn't. The dish we know today was born in America, not Ireland. In the 1800s, waves of Irish immigrants crossed the Atlantic, escaping famine and chasing hope. They arrived in crowded neighborhoods of New York and Boston with little money and a hunger for something that felt like home. Back in Ireland, pork was the meat of choice, but in America it was too expensive. Beef, on the other hand, was cheap. And in the same streets lived Jewish immigrants who had long perfected the craft of curing brisket in salt. The Irish learned from them, buying meat from kosher butchers, borrowing their method, and blending it with their own tradition of cabbage and potatoes. What came out of that exchange wasn't just dinner, it was adaptation. It was identity reinvented. They left their homeland with almost nothing, but found a taste of home in a foreign land. So when we call it a tradition, we're really honoring a small miracle of survival, proof that even comfort food begins as courage. What we call tradition was once someone's experiment in survival. Long before it sat on breakfast plates, corned beef marched across battlefields and sailed the seas. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the British Navy filled their ships with barrels of salted meat, beef cured in corns of salt, packed tight, stacked deep. For sailors who might spend months at sea, it was more than food. It was survival. Then came the World Wars. Fresh beef couldn't last on the front lines, so corned beef was sealed into a new form, a rectangular can. It was easy to stack, easy to ship, and easy to open with that little twist key. Soldiers called it bully beef. It wasn't fancy, but it fed millions. A quiet kind of comfort in the middle of chaos. After the wars, those cans didn't disappear. They traveled. In the Caribbean, it meant rice and spice, bully beef and rice. In the Philippines, it sizzled with onions and garlic for breakfast, a salty warmth beside rice and eggs. In Latin America, it slipped inside empanadas and sandwiches. In Hong Kong, it swirled into creamy macaroni soup at corner cafes. Everywhere it went, people made it their own, turning a food born from necessity into something familiar, comforting, loved. Something born from survival became a taste of comfort, proof that food, like people, can travel and transform. So, why is it still called corned beef if there's no corn? The answer lies in the language itself. Centuries ago, corn simply meant a grain, any small hard particle. But when English crossed the ocean to the New World, it meant a new crop, maize. And slowly, the word changed. Corn stopped meaning grain. It started meaning one grain in particular. The language moved on, but the name stayed. Like a fossil pressed into the earth, the word corned still holds the shape of what it once meant, a small reminder of a world that spoke differently. And that's what makes it beautiful. Food and language share the same gift. They both remember. A recipe can carry a century. A single word can hold an entire way of life. Corned beef is both, a dish that outlived the hunger that made it, and a name that outlasted the meaning that defined it. It's funny how words, like flavors, can outlast the world that created them. No, there's no corn in corned beef, but there's a story that began with salt and survival, traveled through trade and empire, crossed oceans with immigrants, and found its way into kitchens around the world. From Irish docks to American delis, from Navy ships to family tables, corned beef carried with it more than flavor. It carried proof that people can adapt, that words can change, and that even the simplest things can hold the weight of history. It reminds us that comfort can be born from hardship, and that memory can hide in the smallest bite. Because in the end, it's not about corn, it's about connection. It's about how we carry our stories, in recipes, in language, in the little things that survive when everything else fades. The simplest things often carry the longest journeys. If you enjoyed this story, tell us what simple thing you'd like us to explore next. Your idea might become our next episode. Thank you for watching Secrets of Simple Things, where history often hides in the smallest details. Our team uses the internet and AI research tools to create this video. Despite our best efforts, errors or omissions may occur. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This video fully complies with YouTube's community guidelines. It contains no hateful, misleading, or harmful content, only factual storytelling and cultural education. I'm Frank. Bye and see you soon.